The storm didn't announce itself. It arrived in whispers first, a thin hiss across the highway, snow drifting like smoke, erasing the lines of the road before I even realized. My tires crunched against ice, the engine whining as I slowed, fogging breath rising in short, shallow bursts. Trees bent under the weight of frost, their skeletal branches clicking together like dry bones in the wind. Somewhere distant, a crack echoed, too hollow for falling ice, too deliberate for thunder. I squinted through the white, searching for a road sign, a building, anything familiar. The world had narrowed to snow and shadow. Then I saw it, a metal sign emerging through the blizzard, half buried, letters dark against the frost. Greyridge. The name shimmered faintly, as though blinking in and out of reality. Something had scratched words into the surface. Don't trust what you see after dark. My laugh caught in my throat. Jokes, superstition, I tried to tell myself that. But even as I stepped closer, I felt it, a weight pressing from behind, the cold reaching deeper than winter should. The highway behind me had vanished. My tires left no tracks, only a smooth, blank expanse. Then I heard it, a faint whisper threading through the wind. My name. I spun. Nothing. Except the reflection in the icy side mirror. Someone standing just behind me, featureless, still, watching. And I wasn't sure if the eyes staring back were mine, or someone else's. The storm didn't start suddenly. It crept in the way rot does. Slow, patient, unnoticed until it was everywhere. By the time I realized the snow wasn't normal, the road behind me had already vanished. I stood at the edge of the highway, engine still ticking from the drive, watching white swallow asphalt. The wind erased tire tracks in seconds, smoothing the world into something unfinished. Trees bowed under the weight of ice, their branches clicking together like brittle fingers. Somewhere in the distance something cracked, not thunder, not wood. Something hollow. I told myself it was just another winter storm. I told myself winter always made things feel unreal. The town sign loomed out of the snowfall as if it had been waiting. Welcome to Greyridge population. 612. Below it, someone had scratched something into the metal with a blade or a nail. Don't trust what you see after dark. I laughed when I read it. A short breath of sound that vanished instantly into the wind. Towns liked their jokes, their warnings, their folklore. It was how they made themselves feel important. Still, I didn't touch the sign. Greyridge was supposed to be a brief stop. 2 nights, maybe 3. I was a freelance surveyor, hired to document structural damage after extreme weather events. Satellite data showed abnormal cold pockets forming here every winter. The kind insurance companies cared about. The kind people shrugged off until their roofs collapsed. As I drove into town, the silence deepened. Snow muted everything. No traffic. No voices. No distant hum of life. Just the low moan of wind threading through empty streets. Houses sat buried up to their windows, dark and closed off, like they had chosen not to participate in the world anymore. Lights flickered behind a few curtains, but every time I looked directly at one, it went dark. That was the first moment something twisted in my chest. I parked near the only building that looked remotely alive, a general store with a dim yellow bulb buzzing above the door. Snow had drifted halfway up its windows, and a plastic wreath hung crooked, frozen in place like it had been abandoned mid-decoration. When I stepped inside, the bell rang too loud. Every head turned. There were 6 people inside. Maybe 7. They didn't look surprised to see me. They looked tired. Hollowed out. Their eyes followed me the way animals watch a passing car. Alert, distant, already resigned. The heater rattled in the corner, failing to warm the space. The smell of damp wool and old coffee clung to the air. An old man behind the counter stared at my boots, not my face. "You shouldn't be here," he said. No greeting. No curiosity. Just that. I smiled awkwardly. Storm forced me off the highway. "I'm just looking for a place to stay." His jaw tightened. For a moment, I thought he wouldn't respond at all. Then, quietly, "Storms don't force people into Greyridge. They invite them." A woman near the shelves dropped a can. It rolled across the floor, spinning, clattering, refusing to fall over, until it stopped directly at my feet. No one moved to pick it up. I bent down, feeling suddenly foolish, and placed it back on the shelf. My hands felt numb, even inside my gloves. "Is there a motel?" I asked. Silence stretched too long. Finally, someone nodded toward the window. "The Ridgeview Inn. End of Main Street." The way he said it, flat, stripped of meaning, made my stomach tighten. Outside, the snow had thickened. Visibility shrank to a handful of feet. The town felt smaller now, compressed by the storm, like something tightening its grip. The inn appeared through the white like a bad memory. 3 stories. Paint peeling. Windows uneven, some glowing faintly, others dark and blind. The sign creaked as it swayed, letters missing, the word view barely readable beneath ice. Inside, the lobby was warm, but wrong. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that presses against your ears. A woman sat behind the desk. Mid-30s, maybe. Dark circles under her eyes. She didn't look up when I approached. "Room for one," I said. She slid a key across the counter without speaking. I hesitated. "How much?" Her fingers paused. Then she looked at me. And for the first time since arriving, I saw fear, raw and unfiltered. "You'll pay later," she said. "Everyone does." My room was on the 2nd floor, facing the street. Snow pressed against the glass like a living thing. When I set my bag down, the floor creaked, not under my weight, but after, as if responding. I tried the heater. It coughed warm air that smelled faintly of iron. That's when I noticed the mirror. It hung above the dresser, old and slightly warped. For a moment, my reflection lagged, just a fraction of a second behind my movement. I blinked, stepped closer. Normal again. I told myself it was exhaustion. Long drive. Stress. Cold. Outside, the wind screamed. Then a sound cut through it. A voice. Not shouting. Not calling. Whispering. I moved to the window, heart thudding. The street below was empty. Snow churned in violent spirals, erasing everything beyond the nearest lamp. The whisper came again, closer this time. Right behind me. I spun around. The room was empty. But the mirror showed someone standing just over my shoulder. And when I turned back, the reflection didn't. I couldn't sleep. Not really. The wind had died down outside, but the storm's residue remained, an unnatural quiet, thick enough to taste. The heater wheezed and clanked in the corner, a weak heartbeat against the silence. Shadows pooled in the corners of the room, stretching impossibly long, folding over themselves. By morning, I had convinced myself the mirror was just old glass, that the whisper was imagination, that Greyridge was a town like any other, if unusually depressed and snowbound. I left my room and went to explore the streets, notebook in hand. The snow had shifted overnight. Tire tracks and footprints from yesterday were gone, erased by some invisible hand. Even the Ridgeview Inn looked smaller from the outside, as if it had shrunk overnight. I started with the general store, the place where the old man had warned me. The bell tinkled when I entered. The same 6 or 7 figures sat in the exact same positions, their faces unreadable. The woman who had dropped the can yesterday was behind the counter, folding her hands over a ledger that was entirely blank. "You're early," she said without looking up. I couldn't sleep," I admitted. The silence that followed was heavy, deliberate. Then the old man spoke, his voice lower than I remembered. "Sleep won't save you here. Time doesn't save you." I frowned. "What do you mean?" He didn't answer, only tilted his head toward the back of the store. On the wall, photographs had appeared overnight. Family portraits, old black and white images, yellowed with age. Except, the people weren't smiling. Not a single one. And each photo included a single identical figure lurking in the background. A shadowed face, featureless, watching. I stepped closer. My breath fogged the glass. Each time I blinked, the figure seemed to move. One photo, a child's birthday party. Another, a wedding. In every frame, that same indistinct watcher lurked. "Do you see it?" the woman asked quietly. Her voice trembled, though she didn't look at me. "Yes," I whispered, not taking my eyes off the photographs. "Greyridge keeps them," she said. "Those who notice anyway." I took a step back, suddenly dizzy. The town's unnatural silence pressed in from every side. My notes felt useless, the words meaningless against the strangeness. And then the whisper came again, low, carrying over my shoulder. "You shouldn't be here." I spun, notebook raised like a shield. The store was empty. The patrons stared, unblinking, unmoving. The old man's eyes had darkened, shadowed, deeper than any natural human expression. What is this?" I stammered. "The winter," he said. "It remembers." I left the store abruptly. Outside, the town had changed. The snow was now a gray ash, littering streets and rooftops. One streetlight flickered, revealing footprints in the snow. My own, but older. Faded. Leading not just forward, but backward, looping around the buildings. Panic crawled up my spine. I followed them anyway. The streets twisted unnaturally. Buildings seemed to lean in, watching. Windows stared like eyes, shuttered yet alive. A door opened by itself. A light flickered from inside an alley I could swear hadn't been there before. Inside that alley, I found a journal, lying atop a melting pile of snow. The cover was thick with ice, frozen in place. My name was etched on the front. Hands shaking, I opened it. The first line. "Day 1, he's here. We never leave. Winter always remembers." The pages were filled with entries I didn't recognize, written in my handwriting. Descriptions of events that hadn't happened yet, or had they? The more I read, the more the town dissolved. Faces blurred. Time warped. Shadows moved independently. A memory. No, a flashback, hit me. My grandmother had once told me about Greyridge. About the family curse, whispered among old relatives like a bad joke. Never go in winter. The town eats the ones who don't belong. I had laughed then. I didn't laugh anymore. From that point on, every whisper, every shadow, every flicker of light became evidence. Paranoia clawed its way into every thought. The townspeople, if that's what they were, started appearing in places they shouldn't, at the end of hallways outside my window, just beyond the reach of snowlight. When I blinked, they were closer. And through it all, the mirror in my room haunted me. Every reflection held someone behind me. Someone featureless. Watching. Waiting. Sometimes it moved on its own. Sometimes it spoke. By the third night, I wasn't sure if I was walking the streets or the streets were walking me. Greyridge had remembered me. Time had remembered me. And the winter, silent, patient, eternal, had begun. A door slammed somewhere. Close, too close. The whisper returned, insistent. "You can't leave." I realized then, with a cold certainty, that leaving Greyridge might be impossible. That the snow, the wind, the very town itself was alive. And it didn't just watch. It consumed. By the fifth night, I had stopped distinguishing between snow and shadow, between outside and inside. The Ridgeview Inn had become a labyrinth. Hallways folding back into themselves, doors appearing where none should exist, mirrors reflecting rooms I'd never entered. Every sound, every whisper, felt alive, directed at me. The storm had returned with unnatural force, howling so loud it sounded like it carried voices. I followed one of the whispers down a narrow hallway that seemed impossibly long. It guided me to the basement. The door was heavy, iron-bound, rusted. My fingers trembled as I turned the knob. The whisper had grown clearer. "Come. He waits." I opened the door. The basement was empty. Or so it seemed. The heater's hum had vanished. Darkness clung to every corner, thick and viscous. Then I saw movement, a figure, taller than any human, featureless, its form twisting like smoke trapped in glass. It didn't walk. It flowed, bending the floor beneath it. "You shouldn't be here," it hissed, voice layered. Many overlapping tones, mine, someone else's, the town itself. I stumbled backward. What do you want from me?" "Everything," it said. And the air changed. Time warped. I saw past and future collapsing around me. Faces frozen in torment, the townspeople dissolving into snow, the inn becoming an endless white void. I ran. The hallways bent like paper, stretching into infinity. Doors slammed around me, trapping me. Each step echoed a second too late. Shadows whispered my name, accusing, laughing. I reached the mirror at the end of the corridor. The reflection. It wasn't me. It was him, featureless and immense, standing just behind the version of me trapped in glass. I screamed. The sound echoed in reverse, swallowed by the storm outside. The figure reached through the mirror, hand stretching impossibly long. My reflection screamed with me. I stumbled, clawing at the frame. The mirror surface warped, sucked at my body, pulling me in. The townspeople appeared, silent, empty-eyed. Their hands reached for me, not to help, but to hold me still as the figure consumed the space around us. Their whispers filled my ears. The winter remembers. The winter claims. I fought, but the air thickened. Snow seeped in through the walls, icy tendrils wrapping around my legs. I tried to scream, but the sound turned into wind, spinning through the basement in a cyclone of cold. I could feel my mind fracturing. Each memory, each identity, splintering under the pressure of that impossible presence. I reached out blindly, grabbed a piece of wood from the floor, threw it at the mirror. The glass cracked, but instead of relief, the cracks multiplied, spreading like veins. The figure grinned, or at least I thought it grinned because it had no face. A whisper. Endings are beginnings. You are already part of us. I realized then, there was no escape. Not from the storm, not from Greyridge, not from myself. The snow had consumed time, the town had consumed space, and the figure had consumed me. The last thing I remember before the blackness swallowed everything was my own eyes in the mirror, staring back at me, screaming silently. The storm continued outside, indifferent. The town waited. And somewhere, deep in the snow, the winter remembered again. Morning, or what passed for morning in Greyridge, arrived like a hesitant whisper. The storm had softened, but the snow remained thick, unbroken, stretching into the horizon like a frozen sea. The town looked untouched. Too still, too perfect, as though nothing had happened at all. But I knew better. I had been there. The Ridgeview Inn stood silent, windows dark and lifeless. I walked the empty streets, boots crunching in the snow, but I never saw a single person. The town felt abandoned, yet alive, waiting, as if breathing beneath the layers of frost. Every shadow seemed to stretch toward me. I half expected the mirrors of the shops to reflect the figure again, but they were empty, silent, unyielding. I found the general store, its door slightly ajar. Inside, the shelves were bare, the ledger blank. The old man and the woman were gone. On the floor, the can I had returned days ago lay frozen in a thin sheet of ice, perfectly upright. I stared at it, unable to comprehend how time worked here anymore. I tried to leave. Every road I had taken before seemed to twist back on itself. I would step forward, and the landscape would ripple, the snow pressing closer, buildings stretching taller. Even my own footprints had vanished. It was as if the town itself had erased my passage, rewriting reality to ensure I would never truly escape. At the edge of the forest, I saw them, the faint, indistinct shapes of people, or what I thought were people, standing still, half buried in snow. They weren't moving, weren't breathing, but when I looked directly at them, I felt their awareness pressing into my chest. Their eyes, hollow or absent, seemed to follow me with intent. The mirror from the inn appeared in my mind, crystal clear. My reflection, screaming, trapped behind glass. And then I realized, I wasn't sure anymore if I had truly left the inn, or if I had been running through an endless loop, trapped inside the winter storm itself. The wind carried a whisper that chilled me deeper than the cold ever could. We never forget. We never release. I sank to my knees in the snow. The trees around me groaned under their frozen weight. My breath formed clouds that dissolved too quickly, as if even the air didn't want me here. The sun tried to rise, but the sky remained gray, heavy, unyielding. Somewhere behind me, a faint creak of a door opening. I turned. Nothing. Only snow, stretching endlessly, white and indifferent. I understood then. Greyridge wasn't a town. It was a memory, a prison, a mechanism. Winter was not a season. It was a witness. It had seen everything, and now it held me, reshaped me, made me part of its silence. The storm, though quiet, still hummed with life. Shadows shifted in ways no snow should. The last thought that lingered in my mind, before my consciousness thinned into the white, was simple and absolute. I was never leaving. And in the hush of Greyridge, the wind carried only one truth. Some winters do not end. They only remember.